It's something we all have to do. The dreaded self-edit. Combing through our work to find all the horrific grammatical errors, the characterization that doesn't really make any sense, and the plot holes that are large enough to fit an entire apartment complex in them. That is the point for us in self-editing, trying to get rid of some of those issues before they get to our beta readers or our editors themselves. It is a necessary but time-consuming process. And so in this video, we're going to go over 4 tips that I use when I go through my self-edits to kind of speed up the process while also being more thorough and catching things I wouldn't if I just spent the entire time in my own head reading through and trying to fix it bit by bit. Hopefully these tips will be just as helpful to you and perhaps speed up this process for you. We're going to start with the grammar assistants, and honestly, as they continue to adapt and as they use more and more AI, these grammar assistants are becoming more than just, well, fixing your grammar. They talk about tone and all different types of things. Every bit of writing that I've ever sent to a beta reader or to my editor has first gone through writing assistants, things like Grammarly, ProWritingAid, or Autocrit. These are pretty essential to my process because they show me things that I may not have noticed. And at the same time, when I was really starting to write at the very beginning, they taught me some things. They taught me some grammatical rules that I really didn't know, which I want to take a moment to point out here. That's okay. You don't have to have perfect grammar to start writing. You learn grammar as you go. It's a part of the process for me, and that's actually a big reason why I picked my editor, an editor who would help explain things that I got wrong. She's been wonderful in that over the last couple of years, helping improve my writing while also editing. But back to the tools. There's 3 main ones that I use. I use Grammarly, Autocrit, and ProWritingAid. Honestly, right now, I tend to just use ProWritingAid, and there's a reason for that. So Grammarly is going to be the one that is the best for free. If you don't have the money to buy any of the subscriptions, Grammarly is probably your best bet. They offer a lot for free. They're very well used, though they do tend to aim towards, things like business emails, fixing those. You may even use Grammarly in your day-to-day job, but they do offer a ton for free. On the opposite end of that spectrum, you have Autocrit. Autocrit is very in-depth. It gives you a ton of information, perhaps a little bit too much, but if you really like analytics, it's going to be a lot of fun for you. And you can compare it to all different types of things. But it is very, very expensive, at least from my point of view. It's a very expensive thing. And as far as I know, they do not have any lifetime subscription. They just have a very expensive annual subscription or monthly subscription. The one that's kind of in the middle of both of those, offering a lot, but not as much for free, is going to be ProWritingAid. I use ProWritingAid because I purchased a yearly subscription and I feel like it gives me a lot. It is not as lightweight as Grammarly. It kind of does tend to slow down like my computer. It has some issues when it's trying to run the real-time Autocrit, but it is still functional, and part of that's just like the age of my computer. But it's just something to consider. Autocrit, for example, is on the web page. Grammarly and ProWritingAid both have their things through actually like add-ons on Microsoft Word, although they also both have ways that you can do it on their web page as well. But it offers a lot, and it's not nearly as pricey as Autocrit. It just tells you a lot of really helpful information. But really be careful with this because these are not a substitute for editing. Writing assistants don't fix it for you, and you definitely should not take everything they say. There's missing context in a lot of ways, and sometimes the things that the writing aids tell you is just plain wrong. So it's really important as you go through it and use the writing aids to consider them an aid. Even when you have a full person that is an editor, you should still be doing the same thing. Why wouldn't you be doing it with an AI editor or basically something that's been programmed to look for certain things? You will ignore a lot of their suggestions. And if you don't, you'll end up with some kind of unholy creation that doesn't make much sense because you're taking in all this feedback that's not necessarily related to the other things you've already done. It'd be something kind of like, Rise of the Skywalker. The second tip may not apply to you, so This is kind of where I'm diverging a little bit because this tip is very specific to me and my use of Microsoft Word. Now, there may be similar things in other words, like if you use Google Docs or if you use Scrivener, there may be similar things in this, so it might be worth checking out and doing a quick search to see if this functionality is there. But I found these to be quick ways to just help you speed up your editing, especially when you're dealing with like the big story editing. In Microsoft Word, if you've been using heading styles, which can be found at the Home tab of Microsoft Word under Styles, you can quickly swap between your chapters. Not just like go back and forth between the chapters, I mean actually move your chapters. You can drag and drop your chapters to in front of each other or behind each other. This is really helpful if you're like me and you realize that chronologically, this chapter would actually do better if it was in front of this one with some tweaking of the wording here and there. I've actually moved a chapter like up 6 or 7 chapters, and the way I did it back before I knew this existed was I would just copy everything and then do a cut and then paste it on another, like before the chapter I wanted. It always made it a little bit annoying trying to fix everything. This is just a sleeker, quicker way to do it. And to preserve my sanity for this, I'm just going to pretend that this is a newer feature and that I just didn't miss it for, like 6 freaking years. One of the other tools, which is absolutely essential and why I have so quickly moved away from any kind of, journal for my writing, is the find and replace tool. Opening up the find and replace tool will be essential to the next tip as well, but it's great for making wholesale replacements through your manuscript. Say you decided that your main character Jeff needed a more unique name. Simply find every instance of Jeff in your book and replace it with Geffard, Lord of the Seven Seas, hero of the time that land forgot, burner of the souls, Junior. It's really just a fast way and it doesn't have any kind of limits. It will look through your entire manuscript and replace everything. And just another tip here with it, if you're trying to make sure that you're not getting excess, like say you're searching for of, but you're also getting it when you're throwing it into words where O and F are together, just put spaces in between it and it will really narrow it down and just find that specific usage of. It's a really powerful tool that I don't think you really think about enough because it's kind of become commonplace. Now, I personally think the other part of Microsoft Word, the in-word editor, even though they've started to add in a bunch of AI to it since 2022, I still kind of feel like it's unnecessary. You can just really, for the most part, ignore it because I think it's easier and better to use the more advanced tools from Grammarly and ProWritingAid or Autocrit. I think those do a better job, not just of providing context and information, but actually teaching you and finding things. They always find a lot more than Microsoft Word does, and they tend to have more accuracy, at least in my experience. As you're going through your editing, I would suggest making a list of filler words, a list of all the things that you find excessive, that you're probably using in your writing, because we often use them in our speech. And it's kind of natural to take that speech and put it into our writing. Filler words are those little things that you add, sometimes subconsciously, just to really add context, but actually ends up kind of making your wording really convoluted and unnecessary. I would recommend keeping that filler list to about 10 to 15 words, because what you're going to do with that filler list is you're going to go through each one, you're going to search them out, and you're going to destroy. Really what you'll be doing is taking those instances of fillers and removing them or replacing them as necessary. Most of the time, you are just going to remove that and just read the sentence out. It will probably work the same. The whole issue with filler is it's unnecessary. That's filler. It's unnecessary in conveying what you're trying to say in the sentence. So when you're removing a filler word, normally what's going to happen is the sentence will still work. It will still convey everything you wanted it to convey, just in a more concise and easier to read way. So take out the filler word, read the sentence. If it doesn't work, you may need to rearrange some things, maybe change the structure of the sentence a little bit, or add some extra context that's not filler context. I've linked a filler word down below that has actually up to 30 filler words. And I think it's a really good resource because not only does it kind of explain the filler words, but but it gives you some examples of what you would change them into. I think if you're unfamiliar with filler words, it's a really great place to kind of start off on, or you can just copy the list and use that as your search and destroy list for filler words in your writing. And remember, the point here is not a full edit. You are very narrowly focusing, and this actually works really well when you're not feeling super creative, because it is more of the practical part of editing. You're not trying to think too much about big plot points or grammatical things, as far as just, how does this sound when I read it? Is it shit? And if it is shit, you get rid of the word. That's really what it comes down to. So this is a very kind of like almost brainless part of it. It does take time. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. This is something that takes several hours at least just to get through the list, especially with, depending on the length of what you're writing, but it does kind of just flow. So that's one of the big editing steps that I do with every single thing that I ever do. And apart from anything else, if you are editing, you're paying an editor. You pay per word. And getting rid of those words that are kind of useless, it helps with your final bill. The funny thing here, as I go through all this, I'm listening to all the filler words I am using in my speech. They're not necessarily written in my script that I'm reading right over here. I'm adding filler words to this video, but there's no Control F for my fucking voice. Should be though. The last editing tip is, for me, normally the very last one that I'm going to do in my process. It is the one that I do right before sending it off to a beta reader or to my editor.
When you're finally ready to move on, send it off to your beta readers and editors. You've got one more step to editing that will make you question everything as you uncover new horrific ways you've mangled your manuscript. Text-to-speech software is a great way to catch in your writing when something just sounds off.
It's a way to step back from the writing and just kind of focus on what you're hearing. You will find things that you didn't see the first time, because at least the way that I see it when I'm going through the writing is your brain is working on a lot of different things. Your brain is working on reading in one way and then also working on trying to edit at the same time. What TTS does is it removes the reading part of it. You're listening, which is actually a bit easier. And I personally do it in about paragraphs. I'll do like one paragraph. Like, you're not listening to it like an audiobook and then going back later. I personally edit while I'm listening. So I'll take a chunk, put it in a reader, listen to it, and edit as I'm listening to it.
Mark got a little long-winded here, so I'm taking over. Use ttsreader.com or other readers to help you find issues in the flow of your writing. That's all. Should I just claim this channel? I can tap into ChatGPT and probably do a better job. Maybe this will be my channel. We'll just call it Bob.
Those are 4 of my editing tips that I hope will help you with this process and make it seem a little bit more bite-sized. But I hope that it helps. But please, if you have other editing tips, things that you have done in the past that really helped you, please put those down in the comment section below, and maybe we can learn together some of the things that have helped us the most in our editing process and getting our stories, poems, or whatever they are out into the world so that other people can read them. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. And just remember, all first drafts are fucking shit. I cuss a lot. Have a great day.
He really does cuss a whole fucking lot, doesn't he? Childish. Did you know he made a video where AI beat him in writing? It's true. You can watch it right over there.